All right, what's up? So, David Dole here for the Rational National. Bernie Sanders is shortly. I want to close their chat here, but I don't know if I can. They are going to be launching. Bernie's going to be having a press conference really shortly. So we're going to watch that together. I'm also going to give more of a live reaction. Here we go. More of a live reaction on the results of Super Tuesday as well. So we're gonna see what Bernie's reaction is live, and I don't know. So it looks like we got 5 minutes here, 5 minutes to spare. So let me do a little. Is there music on here or not? Okay, I don't hear any music. All right, let's keep the volume up here so we know when this goes live. Let's do a little analysis on Super Tuesday. Now, clearly, it was not a good night for Bernie Sanders. I think nobody can deny it was a bad night. Like, this was supposed to be a night where Sanders was going to come out of this Super Tuesday ahead by like 200 delegates. Clearly, right now he's down, though all the delegates have yet to be counted or awarded. California especially really got to wait for all the votes there to be counted to really have an idea. And Bloomberg not hitting viability here is a good thing. It should mean that Sanders gets more delegates than he would otherwise if Bloomberg had been in. But clearly the Sanders campaign has to do something different. You can't just put all the blame on Elizabeth Warren, even though it's very easy to do so, as I was doing that myself last night during the Twitch stream. But it's not all Elizabeth Warren. A lot of this is the campaign itself and their unwillingness so far to really take the gloves off, especially when it comes to Joe Biden. Now that he's like the clear front runner, I think the issue before is because there were so many candidates, and Pete won a state, or kind of won a state, tied with Sanders essentially in Iowa. It was hard to know where Sanders should put his focus, because you had Bloomberg now coming in and trying to buy up, his spot in the race. Biden didn't seem like a threat. They had been attacking Biden up until Iowa, and it appeared to have worked because Biden was not doing well in the first 3 states. But then those attacks stopped because Biden didn't seem like a threat anymore. Well, Biden is the threat. So the reality here is they have to focus on attacking Joe Biden, but not just that. I think they also have to retool their own message. I think Kyle Kulinski made this point best, that the Sanders campaign has to communicate that Sanders is not an extremist, because he isn't. They have to communicate that Sanders is the norm, is the center, is the moderate in the race, and Joe Biden is the extremist because he's the one that doesn't want to change what is fundamentally rigged in the system against poor and working class people. So if you can reframe the discussion that way, and by the way, yes, I'll take some. I think super chats are coming in. I'll take some of those. But when you reframe the discussion like that, then you really make this into a new race, and it becomes a reset. If this really becomes Bernie versus Biden, let's hope Warren drops out and backs Bernie. But as I said on Twitter, and I said in my other video covering this, the way Warren's been acting, I just can't imagine that she's going to support Sanders at this point. She didn't back him in 2016. She was unwilling to run against Hillary Clinton. Elizabeth Warren has never really been willing to challenge the Democratic establishment in public. If she does it behind the scenes, and she may do it behind the scenes in various ways, who knows? And there has been some reporting to that effect. But she has not been willing to really do it in public. So right now you have a unified corporate wing of the Democratic Party. Is Elizabeth Warren really going to come out back Sanders against that unified corporate wing? I don't think so. I hope she proves me wrong, and I'll keep checking on Twitter. Maybe big news will come out, but or maybe Warren will show up here. But it's unlikely that's going to happen, just based on what Warren has done so far. So about 2 minutes away here. Let me check on the super chats. I think I saw a few come in here. Victor Nava Jr. says Bernie needs to pick Warren as VP at this point. That's a good point. So, look, I don't want Elizabeth Warren as the vice president, but it's possible that's what she's holding out for. She may say, look, Bernie, I'll back you, but I got to be vice president, because Warren is a calculating politician in that sense. She often is not good at her calculations, but she's definitely focused on her career and her self-interest. So she may be putting that right now to the Sanders campaign. But what the Sanders campaign definitely has as leverage is that Warren is not going to be Biden's VP. Like Warren right now, her power in this race is very, very small. Biden knows he doesn't need her, so he doesn't have to promise Warren anything. So Warren could basically sit the rest of this race out, or stay in the race and continue hurting Sanders in the numbers, if she doesn't get what she wants. So a Warren VP is still a potential because of that, because she still holds power over the Sanders campaign, even though she holds no power over Joe Biden. But she would be the wrong vice president choice. I would not want her as the VP. Divest says Warren does not need to be VP. Yeah, kind of just went over that. Caven says, how can we come together and help Bernie? We have to make Biden's record viral. So a little of that was already really put forward. Like, yes, they have to keep doing it. And Bernie Sanders, maybe I'll show some ads after he does his campaign update. Bernie Sanders is doing that in terms of doing ads, attack ads against Joe Biden, and showing the differences in their records on, Social Security and on trade deals. But they have to do something else. They have to really change the messaging of their campaign. They can't act like when they were ahead, when they were leading, when Sanders came out of Nevada with this, it appeared like he was going to be, the nominee here. They should have treated that moment as the time to say, look, yes, we are leading. Now it's time to join us and fight against Trump, but also reassure people this is not, this campaign isn't going to fundamentally change, your way of living, because for the vast majority of people, it will only benefit them. It's only going, the Bernie Sanders agenda only negatively impacts the top 0.1%. We're talking people that are incredibly hundred millionaires, billionaires. Only their lives will actually be impacted, or not even their lives, but their wealth will be impacted. Those are the only people who will be impacted negatively. Everybody else will be positively impacted. If they can reframe it, if they had reframed the discussion acting like they are the moderates in this race, and look, And a good way to show that, look at all the results when it comes to Medicare for All polling out of each of these voting states. I think Medicare for All has won the majority of Democratic support in every state so far. Even states that Joe Biden wins by huge numbers. So, like, what does that tell you? Joe Biden won South Carolina huge, yet Medicare for All came out on top. A majority of Democrats that voted for Joe Biden support Medicare for All. So who's the extremist here? The one that is with the voters on the issues, or the one that is fighting against them while thousands of people die every year, or 500,000 people go bankrupt every year due to lack of access or due to healthcare costs. 40,000 die each year due to a lack of access to healthcare. Like, who's the actual extremist in this scenario? And if they do that properly, then it should, you would hope it would change things. They just reset the timer. So now it's 2 more minutes. Okay. Oh, here we go. I may go small here just so we can see a bigger version of this. Oh, here we go. But now there's no audio. Working? Oh, the audio dropped. I don't know why. But it should come back. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, this is. I have no idea what he's going to say here. I really don't. Like, he's going to obviously react to the results, but is he going to make any big announcement? Is he going to make a clear change in the way that he's positioning himself? Maybe, as I was discussing, and as others have discussed, as somebody who is not, this crazy leftist, but as somebody who is actually with the people on the issues. Will he attack Joe Biden? I think that's a strong potential, but nothing so far. I'm just going to stay up to date on Twitter to make sure got the latest info here. And also keep in mind, like, this was just, there's still 2/3 of the states left to vote. What happened last night was clearly a disappointment, but if they can retool and refocus the campaign and refocus the attacks on Joe Biden and really go out there, like Bernie Sanders is going to be on Rachel Maddow tonight. You got to get out there, get your message out there. And they're going to fight like hell. And the one thing you can say about the Sanders campaign about Bernie Sanders is they often operate better when they're underdogs. So with Sanders being an underdog, it may actually help him in the race. And, and Biden does not do well as a front runner. That's for sure. With the focus on Joe Biden and his inability to even form complete, coherent sentences. Or last night he mixed up his sister and his wife. Like, there's going to be a lot to really, a lot for Joe Biden to answer for that he really hasn't been forced to so far because he hasn't been a front runner. Okay, I think there's more super chats coming in. Let me get some of these. David Krasny says, if Bernie picks Warren for VP, Biden will pick a woman of color. Yeah, that's a good point. And it's part of the reason I don't think Bernie should pick Warren as VP. I think for VP, you got to look at Nina Turner. You got to look at Barbara Lee. Got to look at Rashida Tlaib. Those are my VP picks. James Munez says, nobody will answer my question. Can you spend 2 to 3 minutes speaking to what would happen if Bernie told his voters not to vote for Biden? What do you mean, in the general? No. That would be irresponsible of Bernie because of the cultural impact that Donald Trump has. Like, this is why no one's answering your question, because it's not realistic. That wouldn't happen. The worry, though, is that regardless of what Bernie Sanders or AOC say, there's a good chance that a lot of young people will not come out for Joe Biden. It doesn't matter if Bernie and AOC and the entire Sanders movement or the leadership in that movement endorses or backs Biden, a lot of young people are not going to come out for Joe Biden regardless. So that's the worry there. Tim Gordon says, would it surprise you if Warren endorsed Biden? It wouldn't surprise me, no. It may have surprised me 6 months ago, but seeing what she's been doing, she was attacking Medicare for All from a conservative position, saying that Bernie's Medicare for All plan raises taxes of the middle class. Like, that is a right-wing talking point. So, no, it would not surprise me if Elizabeth Warren backed Joe Biden at this point. But I also, look, I'm seeing a lot of her supporters online, like people that have a following, real people, begin to back Bernie Sanders now. So while she may say, oh, back Biden, even if that happens, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of her support's going to go to Joe Biden. There's still people backing her that thought she was fighting for them, and clearly she was not. This is taking way too long. Just going to open up the... it's probably a Periscope stream on this too. I just want to make sure they're both... Yeah, okay. They're both showing the same thing. So, just got to wait. Hearing a lot of super chats coming. Gabby Alvarez says, if Joe is the only nom, he only beats Trump with Bernie VP. I don't know. Well, first of all, that's never going to happen. Though I don't think you're saying that either. But yeah, Biden is not going to pick Bernie as the vice president. They're not going to have two, late 70-year-olds, two white men, even though Bernie's Jewish, but they're not going to do that on the ticket. But like, the worry is, even if Joe manages to win, and it would only be because of fear, because enough people have seen 4 years of Trump and they don't want any more. And regardless of who the nominee is, they're going to vote for the nominee. Even if Joe Biden wins, what happens in 4 years? Like, Obama led to Donald Trump. So what is Obama's VP going to lead to? That's also what the focus should be here, is even when talking electability, I think there's a way to say, because a lot of people have already resigned to the idea that Joe Biden can defeat Trump. So while you can still make the case that no, he can't, you can also say at the same time, well, even if Joe Biden wins, what happens then? We return to a situation that produced Donald Trump. So I think there is legitimate reason to, or there is a strategy in there that they could use where they can discuss what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in this world where Joe Biden's the best we can do? Where, and imagining this world where, since Obama led to Trump, what might Joe Biden lead to if we don't actually deal with these issues in a serious manner? So there's a lot the campaign has to consider now. Like, now is the time. They have nothing to lose at this point. They're the underdog. It's essentially a one-on-one fight. Like, pull out all the stops, attack Joe Biden as tough as you can. Like, you have to be as hard as you can on him. And they have released, I already said this, but they've released some attack ads on Biden. All right. He's coming out.
Well, everybody, thanks for coming. Let me begin by thanking the many, many people all across the country who yesterday supported our historic campaign. We were obviously especially gratified to win in Utah, win in Colorado, win in California, the largest state in the country where there are more delegates. And I am always grateful for the support that I receive here in the state of Vermont. Now, I haven't seen the latest delegate count, but my guess is that after California is thrown into the hopper, it's going to be pretty close. We may be up by a few, Biden may be up by a few, but I think we go forward basically neck and neck. And I very much look forward and be on a plane tomorrow, going out west and campaigning and doing everything we can to win in Michigan and Washington, Mississippi, North Dakota, Idaho, and Missouri. What this campaign, I think, is increasingly about is which side are you on? Our campaign is unprecedented because there has never been a campaign in recent history that has taken on the entire corporate establishment. And I'm talking about Wall Street, and I'm talking about the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry. There has been never a campaign in recent history which has taken on the entire political establishment. And that is an establishment which is working frantically to try to defeat us. And there's not been a campaign, I think, that has been having to deal with the kind of venom we're seeing from some in the corporate media. This campaign has been compared to the coronavirus on television. We have been described as the Nazi army marching across France, etc., etc. As we come into the last several months of this campaign, what I hope very much is that what we can focus on is an issue-oriented campaign which deals with the concerns of the American people. As some of you may recall, the last debate that took place really was, I think, insulting to the American people. It was a food fight. It was about who could yell the loudest. That's not what the American people want. They want a serious debate on serious issues. Joe Biden is somebody I have known for many years. I like Joe. I think he's a very decent human being. Joe and I have a very different voting record. Joe and I have a very different vision for the future of this country. And Joe and I are running very different campaigns. And my hope is that in the coming months, we will be able to debate and discuss the very significant differences that we have. Joe is running a campaign which is obviously heavily supported by the corporate establishment. At last count, he has received funding from at least 60 billionaires. 60 billionaires. Our campaign has received more campaign contributions from more Americans, averaging $18.50 than any campaign in the history of our country at this point in time. So what does it mean when you have a campaign which is funded very significantly by the wealthy and the powerful? Does anyone seriously believe that a president backed by the corporate world is going to bring about the changes in this country that working families and the middle class and lower income people desperately need? We're going to the Midwest. I'll be in Michigan shortly. And as I think everybody knows, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Midwest in general, Minnesota, have been very hard hit by disastrous trade agreements. And Joe is going to have to explain to the people, the union workers in the Midwest, why he supported disastrous trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China, which have cost this country millions of good-paying jobs, and in fact have resulted in a race to the bottom where people are now earning lower wages. Millions of people today lost good-paying jobs in manufacturing and are now earning substantially less than they used to. Joe is going to have to explain to the American people why he voted for a Wall Street bailout, something that I vigorously opposed. Joe is going to have to explain to the American people who are so tired of endless wars which have cost us too many lives, destabilized many regions around the world, have cost us trillions of dollars, why he was a leader in getting us involved in the war in Iraq. At a time when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to make ends meet, Joe is going to have to explain to the American people why he voted for a disastrous bankruptcy bill, which benefited the credit card companies. Joe is going to have to explain to people all over this country why he was on the floor of the Senate time and time again talking about the need not only to cut Social Security, but Medicare, Medicaid, and veterans programs. How does that happen? Why would a Democrat talk about cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and veterans programs? Joe and I have a very different opinion with regarding healthcare. Joe essentially wants to maintain what I consider to be a dysfunctional and cruel healthcare system in which we are spending twice as much per person on healthcare as are the people of any other country, and yet we have 87 million Americans who are uninsured, underinsured, 30,000 people who are dying, and 500,000 people who go bankrupt every single year because of medically related bills. And on top of that, we pay by far, not even close, highest prices in the world for prescription drugs from an industry which is involved in collusion and price fixing. So the American people have got to understand that this is a conflict about ideas, about a record, about a vision for where we go forward. And I like Joe. Joe is a decent guy, and I do not want this campaign to degenerate into a Trump-type epic where we're attacking each other, where it's personal attacks. That is the last thing this country wants. Joe has his ideas, his record, his vision for the future. I have mine, and I look forward to a serious debate on the serious issues facing this country. And I would hope that the media will help us do that, allow that kind of debate to take place. And by the way, I would offer Joe, because I know the issue of healthcare, among many other issues, is such an enormously important issue. I would hope that instead of having a debate where we have to spend 28 seconds trying to respond to a complicated issue, maybe we could spend an hour talking about why the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people through something like a Medicare for All single-payer program. Yes.
Senator, in 2016, you won Michigan. This has now become a swing state. Donald Trump flipped that state later on in the general election. Do you have to win that state to prove again that you can beat him in a general?
Well, look, I have said, I'm asked every day, do you have to win this state? Do you have to win that state? I wish we could win all of the states.
But you won that over Hillary in 2016.
We won it by a few points. Look, we are going in there with a full expectation and the hope that we will win. Michigan is obviously an enormously important state. State I feel very comfortable in. We're going to be going to Michigan within a few days. And I think some of the issues that the people of Michigan are concerned about are trade. And they were devastated. They were devastated by trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China, trade agreements which I vigorously opposed, which Joe Biden supported. And that is certainly one of the issues that I will be talking about in terms of Michigan.
Senator,
one second.
Senator, you talk about a mass movement, a broad coalition.
Yes.
Are you disappointed that that wasn't able to deliver more states last night? And what's your plan to
Well,
expand?
look, of course I'm disappointed. I would like to win every state by a landslide. It's not going to happen. What we are trying to do is unprecedented. All right? We are talking about a political revolution. We are talking about bringing millions and millions of people today who have no voice, who have given up on the political process, who in many cases are working longer hours for low wages, people who don't have any health care, people who have not traditionally been involved in the political process. You all know what politics has always been about in America. You got a candidate from the establishment going out to rich people's homes, raising all kinds of money, and then running for president. This is a different campaign. This is a campaign which is trying to bring, and it is not easy, people who have not been involved in the political process. So if you might want to ask me, maybe as a follow-up question, have we been as successful as I would hope in bringing young people in? And the answer is no. We're making some progress. But historically, everybody knows that young people do not vote in the kind of numbers that older people vote in. I think that will change in the general election. But I am on it. Be honest with you, we have not done as well in bringing young people into the political process. It is not easy. Yes.
And particularly African American voters. What's your strategy going forward?
Well, we're doing better, and no denying that Joe Biden has done very well with the African American community. But I think when you look, and I haven't had the time, honestly, to analyze it, but I think if you look at California, if you look at people of color in general, African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, we won that big time, not even close. So we are doing very well with people of color. We're going to do better, I think, with the African American community, and we continue to try to do that.
Senator, have you been in touch with Elizabeth Warren? Have you asked for her support? She's weighing her next steps today.
Yes, we did speak on the phone a few hours ago, and what Senator Warren told me is that she is assessing her campaign. She has not made any decisions as of this point, and it is important, I think, for all of us, certainly me, who has known Elizabeth Warren for many, many years, to respect the time and the space that she needs to make her decision.
Did you ask for her support?
Thank you, Senator. Two questions sort of on party unity. First off, very simply, do you still believe the person with a plurality of the delegates rather than a majority should be the nominee? And then also, with reference to Elizabeth Warren and also what you were saying about the attacks on your supporters and campaign, obviously there's been a lot of personal vitriol online, right?
Yes.
And people are pressuring Elizabeth Warren to drop out. Do you want to be a unifying figure, and what's your message to
No, I don't think people, look, Elizabeth Warren is a very, very excellent senator. She has run a strong campaign. She will make her own decision in her own time. And in terms of vitriol on the online, I'm disgusted by it. All right. Look, I think the Twitter world is an opportunity for people to debate issues, have good, honest debates about issues, but not to make vitriolic attacks on somebody because you disagree with them.
And the plurality.
I'll analyze this more when he's done. These
Let me say a word on that. And again, I get a little bit annoyed because I think the media has been distorting my record on that. You all know that the rules of the Democratic Convention are different today than they were in 2016, something that we fought for. I believe then, and I believe now, that it should be the American people through the primary process who determines who the Democratic nominee is. 4 years ago, before the first vote was cast in Iowa, Hillary Clinton had 500 superdelegates lined up behind her. Right? It's like starting a 100-yard dash with one candidate on the 30-yard line. And that seemed to be absurd. I wanted to get rid of all superdelegates. We did not prevail. But we did manage to get superdelegates out of voting on the first ballot. So what I said then is before, without going into a whole long deal, before California, which was then the last primary, yeah, if there was if we had won California, if we had the momentum, if superdelegates were voting on the first ballot, yeah, give us some thought. But right now, there are no superdelegates voting on the first ballot. And I just want all of you to think about what it will look like to this country if candidate X, and I don't know who that candidate X might be, I hope it's me, could be somebody else, goes into the convention in Milwaukee with the most votes. And then the party leadership and the insiders and the corporate world say, oh yes, the people voted for you. You won, a number of states, you got more votes than your opponent. But we, the corporate world, the insiders, we don't think you're the candidate. And we're going to select candidate Z. I think that would cause massive dismay within the American people. So, yes, my views have not changed.
I wanted to ask you about Michael Bloomberg stepping out and dropping out of the race. And
Has he stepped out and dropped?
He's dropped out, supporting Joe Biden. Wanted to get your thoughts on what he brought to this race.
Well, first I heard about that. He certainly brought a lot of money into this race. He certainly made a lot of television networks very, very wealthy, and I'm sure they're very disappointed that he's leaving. Look, I have no animus toward Mayor Bloomberg. I surely strongly disagree with many of his policies as mayor of the city of New York, including stop and frisk and many other policies. But this just confirms exactly what I said. It's what the media has been talking about for months. How do we stop Bernie Sanders? How do we stop a movement of working people and low-income people? How do we stop a multi-generational, multi-racial movement which is standing up for justice? And what you do is you get candidates out of the race to rally around Joe Biden, and now Joe will have behind him, I don't know what, this is the first I've heard of what role Mayor Bloomberg will be playing. But obviously, as the 9th wealthiest person in this country who's worth some $60 billion, I suspect we will see, a lot of money coming into Biden's campaign. Probably a lot of negative ads attacking me. That's what we're taking on. And, we are taking on right now, and we have to deal with this in Super Tuesday. And I mentioned this to you the other day. I don't know if anybody did any research on it. We're dealing with a group called the Big Tent, which is a corporate PAC, probably funded by the drug companies and the insurance companies, and fossil fuel industry would be my guess. They spent millions and millions and millions of dollars in the last few days trying to tear us down and to defeat us. That is what this campaign is about. So when you talk about unprecedented campaigns, that is what we're dealing with. We're taking them all on. We're taking on billionaires, and they'll add Bloomberg to the list. We're taking on Wall Street, and I know they were getting very nervous. Guess the stock market went up this morning because they thought that Biden did well. Taking on the military-industrial complex. There has not been a campaign in modern American history, maybe in the history of this country. And let me talk about unprecedented. If anybody in this room thought that a year ago, we began our campaign about a year ago, that a campaign that was taken on Wall Street, and the drug companies, and the insurance companies, and the fossil fuel industry, and the military-industrial complex, and the prison-industrial complex, and most of the 1% of anybody here thought that a year would come and go, and we would be either tied for first, a few votes up, a few votes down, delegates up or down. That is a pretty amazing achievement. And I just want to thank and maybe conclude by thanking the tens of thousands of volunteers who are standing up for justice in this unprecedented campaign. I have every reason to believe that we're going to win this thing. We're going to win it in Milwaukee. And if we win it, this I firmly believe, that we are the campaign to defeat Donald Trump. And I know everybody, every Democrat out there, and most independents and some Republicans understand the moral imperative to defeat Donald Trump. And I believe that the nature of our campaign, which is grassroots, is the campaign to defeat Trump. So, thank you all very much. One last question. Yeah.
Thank you. You put out some new ads today.
So what?
Some new ads today you put out. One of them stitching together some praise from President Obama over the years. What is it that you're hoping to achieve with that ad in particular?
Well, look, we have worked with President Obama. I'm not going to say he and I are best friends. We talk every now and then. We work closely, and he was great on something that I think is enormously important, increasing by $11 billion money for the Community Health Center program, something he was very, very supportive of. I wanted to make it clear because, there's a lot of dishonest statements about my relationship with Obama, to say that I work with him and respect him and look forward to working with him. And by the way, let me say this, and this is true of what happened in 2016. I have not the slightest doubt that there is enormous pressure on President Obama to jump into this race and support Joe Biden. And some of you may have read the other day that he said no. That he thinks the best role that he can play, and I agree with him, is to support the winner, so he doesn't create more division. And I think he's right, but that's not easy for him to do. And I very much appreciate his willingness to do that.
Senator,
thank you all.
You say you're the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump, but you've lost 9 states over the years. How do you still make that case?
Thank you.
All right, let me go large here. There I am. Okay. Maybe go back to center. Even better. Okay. So I'll get to all your super chats in a bit. Just some quick thoughts there. So Bernie Sanders has spoken with Elizabeth Warren, which really shouldn't be all that surprising. I mean, obviously he's going to reach out to Elizabeth Warren after the kind of losses she faced last night. And last we saw, Warren is still waiting to see what she's going to do. So who knows what that's going to turn into. But as I said earlier, as I said during my coverage of Elizabeth Warren in the video I put up this morning, based on her moves, based on her being unwilling or afraid to run against Hillary Clinton in 2016, based on her not backing Bernie Sanders in 2016, based on her moving from supporting Medicare for all to supporting a public option, based on her smears on Bernie Sanders as some kind of sexist, based on her taking on a super PAC after saying all campaign long that she's opposed to super PACs and thinks no candidate should be taking super PACs. Based on all that information, why would I think that Warren would back Sanders now? Now that the corporate wing of the Democratic Party is unified against Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren has never shown a willingness or an eagerness to challenge Democratic power, at least publicly. So why the hell would she do it now? So an endorsement would be great, but even at this point, is it going to have as much of an impact as it would have had a few days ago? No. So even if it comes, it's going to be kind of late, which is why if you see Warren supporters out there, embrace them. Like, bring them into the movement. Forget about the candidate. Like, you can have all your issues that you want with Elizabeth Warren as a candidate. But when it comes to her supporters, a lot of them are turning to Bernie Sanders now. And there's no reason for you to be angry at her supporters. So embrace her supporters and grow this movement. We're all trying to work together to basically save humanity when it comes to an issue like climate change, but also, healthcare, everything else. If people want to join that fight, then welcome them. What else happened there? So Bernie didn't go. Bernie went hard after Biden, which is good, but he still called him his friend. I don't think he needs to do that. He's too nice for his own good. And also, he didn't reframe the race. So he's still talking political revolution. Like, this is the thing. The people you already have, the people that are already with you, they know who you are. They know you're authentic. They know you're a fighter. What you have to do now is appeal to the people that aren't with you yet. And a lot of those people, we're talking about older voters that are scared of change. So you have to be able to reassure people that this change will be good. This change will positively impact their lives. And it's not going to be this scary unknown that you have to go into. So by framing the discussion that way and not making it seem like, a political revolution is going to mean there's going to be, cars on fire in the streets, like that's the kind of images that, some older voters think up. Like, oh, I don't want a political revolution. That sounds scary. You have to reassure people that the positions that you have, looking at all the states that have voted so far, I believe every single one of them have supported Medicare for all in exit polling in a majority. Even states that Biden won big, like South Carolina, I think it's 56% from memory here, of those voters in South Carolina support Medicare for all. 56%. Yet Joe Biden won that state huge. So Bernie has to make the case he's not the crazy one here. Joe Biden's the crazy one for not embracing what the base wants, for not embracing what needs to be done, for not recognizing that 500,000 people a year go bankrupt due to healthcare costs, or that 40,000 people a year die due to a lack of access to healthcare. Like, these are not crazy ideas. These are moderate positions. And Joe Biden is the crazy one. So you have to reframe the discussion in that way. And as I said, credit to Kyle Kulinski. He's the one that brought that up on Twitter. And it's the point that the campaign, I think, really needs to make. And right now they're not doing it. Right now, Bernie's saying essentially the same thing he's been saying, which is fine for us who support him. But if you want to be able to reach out to more people, you have to somewhat change your message, even if it's just a shakeup, even if it's just something new for people to hear. Like, I think we underestimate people people that are watching the stream that are into this stuff. We underestimate the impact of, I guess, marketing, of just changing your message a little bit. Like, you can still fight. You're still fighting for the same things. You're still as authentic as you always were, but change what you're saying a little bit. Reframe it in some way. Like, mixing it up like that all of a sudden makes your campaign seem new and fresh to people that maybe didn't give it a second look before. So you have to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to keep speaking to the same people that already support you. Young people already support you. You have to be able to think up ways to attract new voters, and a lot of those voters being older voters. All right, let me get to some of these super chats here, since I was hearing a lot of them come in. I just got to bring it up. All right, here we go. Whoa, a lot came in. Hold up. I'm trying to find my place here. All right. DV says, the fact that there will be a press conference really has me hoping Warren will endorse Bernie. I hate myself for hoping this after all she's done. Sigh. Didn't happen, sorry. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but as I said, I just think it's unlikely at this point. Gabby Alvarez says, if Joe is the nominee, he only beats Trump with Bernie as vice president. I think somebody else mentioned that earlier. I hear you, but he's not going to pick Bernie as vice president. So, yeah, Joe Biden is a risky candidate, for sure. Paul JM says the Bernie campaign should have anticipated the center coalescing behind a single candidate. How did that not happen? I think even if they saw it coming, I don't think any of us really imagined that it would happen so quickly and that the support would immediately all go to Joe Biden. Because you can have candidates coalesce around, there was a percentage of Buttigieg supporters that supported Bernie Sanders. So Biden didn't necessarily get all of Buttigieg's support, but it appears he got a good chunk of it, as well as Klobuchar, as well as maybe Beto in some sense, in Texas. So I agree with you in the sense that the campaign definitely had to be a little more forward thinking, definitely has to be on their toes a little bit more. It's one thing to, fight for this political revolution and these ideas, but you have to know how to message it in a way that is not scary to people who are not yet with you. And they haven't yet figured out a way to do that. Chris says, what about Sanders I can't read today. What about Sanders being in a good place to obtain more delegates from California and win the other states he won in 2016 after the debate? Yeah, no. He is in a better position right now than he was in 2016. That said, in 2016, Bernie was just up and coming at this moment. He was just hitting his stride. At this point, Sanders is a known quantity. So it doesn't quite have the same, potential for an explosion of victories the way that it did in 2016 when Sanders was just kind of beginning to be on people's radar. So that's the difference there. You have to think about the entire context around 2016. Hillary Clinton was the establishment candidate who up until that point had seemed like, oh, she's definitely going to, take this nomination. But then Sanders showed a real fight and ability to beat her in critical states, including in Oklahoma that he lost to Joe Biden last night. So, and on top of that, Sanders had a lot of rural white support in 2016. It appears he's lost a lot of that to Joe Biden this time. So while it's so crazy because the Sanders campaign gets both ends of it. They get told, oh, the only people that support you are white Bernie bros. Yet in reality, it's young people of color that support Bernie Sanders, and in fact, white men don't. Or rural white voters or white working class support Bernie less compared to people of color. So it's just they can't win either way, but they have to find a way. And I think they're going to have to really do this in Michigan, especially, where you are focusing on those areas that were hard hit by the trade deals that Joe Biden supported. And you saw a little bit of that, Bernie talking about that in that speech. So if they do more of that, he has the potential to win back some of that white working class support that he once had. But yeah, it's weird how, after 2016, we all thought, okay, Bernie has this working class movement, but we got to diversify it a little bit. And they did that. And in the process, they forgot about those rural white voters they once had. So they have to be able to form the whole coalition. And they do have to get that piece back as well. Cody says, last night was disappointing, but at least Bernie won my state house district, most diverse in Minnesota, with 60% in Minneapolis. Keep fighting, everyone. Well, that's pretty cool. Thank you, Cody. Corey Wiley says, can we form a new party, maybe call it the Progressive Democratic Party, and base it on the values and platform policies of Bernie Sanders and AOC? Creating a new political party in the United States is not that easy. It is a two-party system. There's a lot of infrastructure built into not just, DC, but also nationwide in each state. There's an entire apparatus, in addition to just culturally people being used to voting Democrat or Republican. And it's been that way for them for years and years in general, their entire lives. So to undo all of that and introduce a new party and make it seem like it's a viable party is an almost impossible thing to do unless the system is fundamentally changed to allow third parties to really engage in that debate. And right now, it's not there. Munther says, can Sanders run as independent? So this is kind of going off the last question, but it would if Joe Biden wins the nomination, he's going to back Joe Biden. So I don't even think it's worth going down. Like, Bernie Sanders is not the kind of person maybe you want him to be. And also, let's be honest, if Sanders ran as an independent, it would definitely split the vote and almost for sure hand Donald Trump a victory. And does Sanders really want to go down? Even if we know the reality that, hey, it's kind of, this whole system is rigged against his campaign. But does he want to go down and be known in the mainstream press as the guy that gave Donald Trump, that win? He doesn't, and I don't think anybody would want that label. So that's why even like if Sanders was the nominee, I still don't think Bloomberg would run as an independent, because Bloomberg doesn't want to be seen as a spoiler and giving it to Trump, even though it would save Bloomberg, billions of dollars potentially. So yeah, nobody wants that role. I don't see third parties being a thing that's happening in this contest. Divest says Biden/Corn Pop 2020. Actually, that reminds me of a point I want to make. That was made by Ken Klippenstein. Let me bring this up. So this tweet here. Can you imagine how far Biden would tack to the right in the general? This is very true and scary. And as I responded here, great point here. You think Joe Biden's climate, healthcare, social, and economic platform is bad now? Just see what happens if he wins the nomination and assumes he has to attract Republicans to win. Hillary 2016, but with incoherent sentences, sister-wife mishaps, and corn pop. This is why Joe Biden is such a risk. Because his platform right now, the way he's running right now, the candidate he is, his history, what he's done, his record, is already going to hurt him with the Democratic base in a general. But if he moves to the right, dear God, help us all. It's really going to hurt him even more. So yeah. Joe Biden is a massive risk. Where was I here? Eric Vasquez says Tulsi will be on the next debate. No, she will not. DNC had not yet released the rules for the next debate, and I read a tweet. I have to assume it's a solid tweet because I forget who tweeted it now, but it was someone who was who's trustworthy. The DNC basically changed the rules. I wouldn't even say change the rules, but the rules for the debates going forward are different. So even though Tulsi has a delegate, she's not going to be on the debate stage. That apparently will not be enough to make the debate stage. Lee Levin says Warren supporters are endorsing Sanders. Check Twitter and welcome them. No obnoxious behavior, please. Yes, I said that on Twitter as well. 100% agree. Yeah, welcome anybody, whether it's Buttigieg supporters, Klobuchar supporters, Warren supporters. Welcome them into the movement. It's all about transforming the world to be a better place. So don't hold any anger at people that supported somebody else. That would be ridiculous. Shadow DA says, is this hopeless now? No, it's not hopeless at all. Let me show. The race has really just started, guys. So this is how it's divided right now. 512 for Biden, 441 for Sanders. Sanders was in a much bigger hole against Hillary Clinton. So, and Sanders has always performed well as the underdog. So don't freak out just yet. And also, there's more delegates here to be awarded, and a lot of that has to do with California and what Bernie's margin in California will be. So you see Bloomberg here not even hitting viability for delegates. So there should be a big percentage here, hopefully for Bernie Sanders coming out of that. But no, this is not over. But they do have to do something to, re-energize the campaign and really reach out to people that they've been not been able to get out to vote. Carlos Andreas says, would a Sanders-Warren unity ticket help Sanders in the suburbs? Possibly. I just don't. Someone else mentioned this earlier. If Sanders picks Warren as his VP, Joe Biden's going to come out with Stacey Abrams. And at that point, I don't think it would be, I don't think that's a fight that Bernie would win if he picks Warren. And if they both pick their VPs early, it's not really going to do it. Warren is not enough. Michael Cuomo says, with friends like Biden, who needs enemies? Well, to be super fair to Biden, he's not even yes, okay, Biden has definitely lied about Sanders, but Biden isn't the one that's really in front of the camera all that often. If you notice, he kind of avoids the media for the most part. It's the media, the cable news, that is the real enemy here. And the massive, gigantic PACs that are backing or that are putting commercials out there, backed by fossil fuel money, backed by big pharma money, attacking Bernie Sanders. Those are the enemies. So while Biden, yes, is an enemy, Biden isn't the reason that Biden's winning and that Sanders is behind right now. In fact, it's everybody but Biden is the reason Biden's doing well. Think about it. But what has Biden done? He's lost every single debate. He underperformed in the first 3 states. He just happened to win South Carolina huge. And then that leads to this. This small lead with Biden right now is so delicate. This can fall apart in a second with the correct attack, with the correct focus, and they just got to execute it. But again, it requires doing something different that's going to stand out and make people that didn't consider you before consider you this time. Crazy name that I don't even, IDGAF, but with a bunch of X's in between, whatever your name is, says we need to attack. Warren won't fall behind Bernie. Yes, need to attack Biden, but I'm not sure what else you're saying there. Lawrence Lowe says, really not happy with the Super Tuesday turnout / been a sub for a while. Now keep up the great work. Thank you. Yeah, look, when it comes to turnout, obviously we want more young people coming out. That is the hardest part, because that's where when it comes to a general election, there's the potential for a lot of young people to come out. But during a primary process, it's a lot tougher to bring young people out to vote. And that's what Sanders is dealing with right now, which is why he's got to find a new way to appeal to older voters. And I think discussing how he is, not this crazy candidate that he's being positioned as is a way to help with that appeal. Unology says, the saddest part is that this version of Warren is still the second or third best U.S. senator we have. That is very sad. Yeah. William Napier says the U.S. needs new party. New party shadow. The U.S. needs a new party. Shadow show tampering. Oh, you mean the app? Yeah. If the system allowed it, a third party would be awesome. The system is just too, sure. Here's the thing. There are third parties right now. How are they doing? They're not doing very well because the system is not set up for them. So people saying, oh, need a third party. Sure, you can make another one. Some of them already exist, but they don't go anywhere because the system is not set up for it. It is incredibly hard to actually have a successful third party in this current system, the way it is rigged against anybody new coming into it, which is why it is more realistic to take over the Democratic Party because in this current system, it's just a lot easier to do that. Sure, start a new party, but don't expect any actual results for maybe 200 years. It's going to take the infrastructure is everything, and people's opinions and how they think just based on living, the lives they've lived, where it's always been Republicans or Democrats. The idea that there's a viable third party takes some time just culturally to take hold, let alone all the infrastructure involved as well. So it's a whole other discussion. Jay Manuel, thank you for the little emoticon. Victor Nava Jr. says, watch Crystal Ball monologue on Rising. Sure. She's great. I'll check that out later. Kalal, Google staffers, says Biden is going to pick Hillary as his VP. He won't do that. But you got to start looking at somebody like Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris. These are potential VP picks for Joe Biden. Suffragium sends me a nice little emoticon. Thank you for the donation. John O'Shea, another generous donation, says, as much as I would like Anina Turner VP, I think Warren would be a good VP because Bernie needs to win the white college educated support she would bring. I don't. I think about a general matchup. People that would vote for, people that would stay home or vote for Trump unless Warren is Bernie's VP, got to be a very tiny amount of people. Maybe just, I don't know. That's the smallest, the tiniest, I don't know, demographic that exists. No, I don't agree with you there. I think Nina Turner or Barbara Lee or Rashida Tlaib are all better VP picks. Warren doesn't really bring out a new audience. People that are supporting Warren right now are going to vote for the Democratic nominee regardless of who the candidate is because they hate Trump. Dives says Bernie needs to stop with this high road crap. He was doing so well arguing policy. Get him with the lack of mental faculties. Come on, Bernie. It's just not where I agree with you. But look, the campaign's going to have to do it. His surrogates are going to have to talk about Biden and his lack of mental faculties. That isn't what Bernie does. Bernie's a policy guy, and it would be great, if Bernie on a debate stage would be like, can you imagine this guy going up against Trump? He can't even finish a sentence. But that's not who Bernie is. So I don't know. Creative Space, generous super chat, thank you, says Bernie lost. He needed to make Joe the enemy. He needs headliner statements, simple, short, attention grabbing. Status quo Joe wants to kill 70,000 Americans a year. I think there's some validity to big statements like that, for sure. Ten Shinhan says Joe ain't a friend. Go after his dementia. You also have to think about, one of the things that is screwing Sanders is cable news. If Bernie Sanders starts focusing on Joe Biden's brain, I don't really know if that's going to work out for him. Again, Bernie has to appeal to older voters. Are you really going to appeal to older voters by talking about Joe's dementia? I don't think so. So we have to get out of our own mindsets and put our minds in somebody who is a potential Biden supporter, somebody who is just, they have busy lives. They don't pay too close attention to politics. Maybe they're middle class, upper middle class even. But they're gettable with the right argument. And electability, the electability argument is a huge part of that, talking about how young people are very important and they will come out in a general because, or they will come out in a general where it's easier to vote than it is during the primary. Ocean says Bernie needs to stop being nice with the enemy. Waiting to Fade says, I think that Warren is likely to endorse Biden. Themis and Thaw says, I don't know what that says. Black and Joe. Stacy VP. I reviewed this. I don't know what that's a confusing super chat. Dean Rodman says, don't worry about the trolls in chat, David. You're doing your job just by broadcasting this and putting it in our recommended feeds. Thank you. Bob Corrado says, if Sanders believes half his rhetoric about the precarious state of the earth, then I have 3 words of advice for him to consider. Run third party. And 3 words for the rest of us. Get your vest. I discussed the issue with third parties many times, so I'm not going to revisit that. Steve Steve, I don't know your last name, says Bernie got corn popped. He could learn from Trump. You guys got to think about the different bases, though. The GOP base does not act the same way as the Democratic Party base. Like, there are certain attacks that, yes, could work. But if Bernie goes, like, if Bernie takes the same tactics that Trump did, it's not going to work for the Democratic Party. It may appeal to some conservatives that will never vote for Bernie over Trump, but it's not going to work with Democrats. Yazin Yusuf says, I genuinely love this man and I hope he wins. Cadell says, we need 2016 Bernie. Edwin Colazzo says Bernie should go the Kennedy route, befriend a mobster and have goons drag folks to the polls. All right. I don't think I agree with that, but interesting perspective. Refreshed. Oh my God. Many super chats. Appreciate the support here. Pauline Valdez says we need to start playing the game to win. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Tim Gordon says, will you cover election fraud and the need for paper ballots via hand count? I haven't seen election fraud from last night. I have seen long ass lineups. That's definitely an issue. Somebody waited, I think, 5 hours in line. So I did collect some links about that stuff that I may discuss maybe on Friday, if not before then. Hookup79 says that, quote, this is America. There is not a single thing we can't do, folks. Come on. Besides all the stuff Bernie wants to give you. Yeah, that was during Joe's speech last night. He was talking about this. That's almost a direct quote, if not a direct quote, saying that this is America. We can do anything we put our minds to. Yet you don't support anything. You don't support canceling student debt. Don't support Medicare for all. Don't support free public college. Like, if we can do anything, if that's what your message is, then why don't you actually try to do anything? So it's just like how anybody that pays attention votes for Joe Biden. Makes no sense to me. That's why a lot of the support really is just a lot of it's name recognition. Oh, this was Joe Biden, or this was Obama's VP. He's comfortable. Like, that's also part of the issue with Donald Trump. I was thinking about this last night. If Marco Rubio was the president right now, a Joe Biden candidacy would not be happening. This whole thing would not be happening. Bernie Sanders would be happening. But no, it's Joe Biden right now, because Joe Biden is a return to normalcy. Joe Biden is at least better than Donald Trump. That's what the bar is, at least better than Donald Trump. So, like, this idea that some people had that, oh, if Donald Trump wins, it'll radicalize the Democratic Party. They'll all wake up and think, okay, I guess we got to go with the Bernie way now. No, this was always going to be a fight to the death. So the Sanders wing of the party has to actually take power from the people in the party, or else nothing changes. Because the party, the leadership, and the consultant class, the corporate backers, they're not going to just give in to Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders and his message, his policies are antithetical to what they are doing. So it's always going to be a fight. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, it appears because Trump is so bad, Biden is good enough for them. And that's sad. Ping Pong says, can you / Kyle tell me this advice? I don't know why I'm not reading properly right now. Can you / Kyle tell this advice to Bernie directly? I don't have a direct line to Bernie Sanders. But the campaign, like, Kyle definitely has more of an impact on the campaign directly. So I imagine they're listening to him and at least considering what he's saying. Pertherian says, nice that Canadians and Swede are supporting Sanders. I think really the whole world is backing Bernie Sanders, because we know how destructive the American superpower can be. David Hart says, this was nothing but a retread of his main message. Really a disappointment. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. The voters have heard everything he said today and rejected it. Alex Trehan says, Are you in contact with his campaign? If not, why not? He needs you to coach him. In all caps. Why not? Ask them. But no, look, some of them follow me on Twitter. I imagine they see some of my videos, but I'm not the only one saying this. Like, this is kind of a lot of people right now, whether it's, myself, the Young Turks, Kyle Kalinske, whoever, are saying that the Sanders campaign need to rethink how they are messaging their campaign and be able to appeal to voters over 45, because under 45 is not going to win you the nomination. Christine Unterthinner, I am a mess with last names, says, a friend's mom is worried Bernie will divide the country. Any chance you do a segment about that? Thanks for considering and for all that you do. It's just, I feel like all my coverage kind of completely rejects that idea. Like, divide the country how? How would Bernie divide the country when the actual energy in the country, like, first of all, the country's already divided. But on top of that, when you look at the issues, even states where Biden won big, Medicare for All won a majority of support in exit polling. What does that tell you? Bernie Sanders would not divide the country. He would bring the country together to actually fight for a better world. So I just don't. Nothing that Sanders does is divisive. It's the way that the media treats him that's divisive. So it's hard to dispel something that doesn't even really exist, because where do I start with that? But I hear what you're saying, though. It is a sentiment that some people hold because they watch cable news or they watch CBC in Canada, and their coverage has also been garbage of the race. Maybe it's something I'll cover at some point. Happy Cards says, people elect confident leaders, not movement organizers. He has to say, vote for me. I will defeat Trump and don't fear change. Only the bad stuff will change. Go with yes, we can. Patriotism message. Yeah, I think some of that is definitely applicable here. That would be helpful. Kays Plays Games says, why is no one talking about low youth turnout? It was pathetic. I think I just mentioned that a few minutes ago, but I'm sure you sent that earlier. Yeah. Turnout needs to be higher. And because it's not, you got to focus on older voters, unfortunately, and think of a way to win them. Jenny Lynn Tai says Bernie has 501 delegates and Biden with 566, according to NPR at the moment. There are still 284 delegates undecided. Yeah, it's going to be close. Yeah, coming out of Super Tuesday, it's going to be essentially a tie almost, though Biden will be leading almost for sure. But it's a reset on the race. Refocus on Biden and refocus on how you're going to appeal to people that have not been coming out for you. Kyle Knitter says, I think a Tulsi VP would help dramatically. I would disagree. Tulsi voted present on impeachment. You're not going to win those Joe Biden potential voters with a VP that did not vote to impeach Donald Trump. You're going to turn them away immediately. Mount Durman says, don't worry, Joe Biden is running for Senate. Referring to when Joe Biden was on a presidential nomination, or what am I saying? A campaign event, and said he's running for Senate when he's running to be president. But okay. Goldstorm says, Chuck, is it Chuck Rocha or Rocha? I've seen both, but let me say Rocha. Chuck Rocha said on Rising that he's focusing on spring break for youth turnout. All right. Sounds like a fun way to focus on youth turnout. Ricky Muni says, I think Liz will drop out, but who will she endorse? I discussed that in a previous video. James Carvalho says Warren VP and it's a done deal. Hello Katie 123 says, how about Andrew Yang VP to help secure Rust Belt? No. Andrew Yang does not have that much appeal. And have you seen him on CNN recently? Have you seen the kind of commentary he's giving? No. Andrew Yang has fooled a lot of his supporters. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should pay attention to his CNN appearances, or just search on Twitter, search online. Andrew Yang has been giving very, let's say, CNN-friendly, corporate-friendly analyses of the race. Iron IR Nerdy Girl says America doesn't need a third party. We need to switch to a preferential voting system with compulsory voting. Yeah, changing the system is important, but to do that, you need a party in power and a president in power willing to do that. Your Majesty 143 says, just quit my job to start volunteering around the clock here in Ohio. It's okay. I hate it anyway. Our movement is more important. Gonna live on ramen. Well, congrats for that and good luck to you. I hope it goes well. Ohio is definitely an important state. For sure. Still more super chats coming in. All right. I'll get as many that come in and then I'm going to dip out of here. Zewirldo says, why is Ayanna Pressley helping Warren? Traitor. Ayanna Pressley endorsed Warren way earlier. So that's why. And as long as Warren's still in the race, Ayanna Pressley's going to keep backing Warren. I mean, and if you go, it's not all that surprising. Ayanna Pressley backed Hillary Clinton in 2016. You can go back and see a video about Ayanna Pressley talking about why Hillary Clinton should be the nominee over Bernie Sanders. And she actually, from what I remember, Pressley actually smears Sanders pretty harshly in that clip. So that's Ayanna Pressley is with Warren. So she's going to back Warren. Kumari Carter says, how would a Kamala Harris VP pick work for Bernie? She has a... You guys are getting too ahead of yourself. That would never happen before the nomination. So I also don't think it would happen at all. Kamala Harris is not a good vice president pick for Bernie. But I don't... Let me just read the rest of this. She has a progressive record in this, quote-unquote, progressive record in the Senate, and being black would help. Also, Barbara Lee would be great. Nina Turner, Barbara Lee, Rashida Tlaib, those are the top three for Bernie's VP. Kamala Harris would not be a good choice. Michael Cuomo says only ranked choice voting would get third and even more parties a chance in elections, but till then, no chance. And think this way. What party in power is going to change the system that helped lead them to victory? So for any change like that to actually happen, it would have to take place from the grassroots. It would have to be a massive mobilization of people, just like pounding on the doors in D.C. to change anything. Kyle Knitter says, I think a Tulsi VP would help dramatically. I said earlier why that's a terrible idea. Tulsi voted president on impeachment. You are turning away the Democratic base if Tulsi's the VP. It would be a horrible choice. In fact, somebody put out on Twitter, I think it's Owen Higgins. If I can pull this up. I don't think it's the craziest thing that I've heard. Let me show you what I'm talking about once I find it. Assuming he didn't delete it. Because it was a slightly controversial take, but I think it was an analysis worth considering. Here it is. Let me show you this. Owen Higgins tweets out, scenario: Biden and Sanders enter convention basically tied. Superdelegates put Biden over the top, outraging Sanders supporters. Trump, sensing opportunity, proposes jetsoning Pence from ticket, blaming him for coronavirus and offering VP to Gabbard. What does she say? Now, I know this seems crazy upon first look, but Gabbard did vote present on impeachment. And she said she's not running for Congress again. And she has been on Fox News a lot. Not saying Fox News equals Republican, but Gabbard has definitely been criticizing the Democratic Party quite a bit. It's kind of the one thing that she always does. And she's a Democrat right now. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing for Trump to ask or for Trump to offer Gabbard the vice president position. Especially if he thinks that's how he's going to win. Like, if Trump fears at all that he may lose, he will do anything. He'll take crazy measures like that. See what happens. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to think about when thinking about what might happen going into the future. And we've seen how crazy things get. Donald Trump's the president. So at this point, anything is possible. Jason Argento says, do you think Obama is behind this right-wing coalition? Yes, he definitely is. I assume you mean this corporate consolidation of the vote around Joe Biden. Yes, there's people saying, sources saying that he called Pete Buttigieg and told Buttigieg basically, you have leverage now and use it. So he did that. It wouldn't be crazy to think that he also talked to Amy Klobuchar. It wouldn't be crazy to think that he talked to Beto O'Rourke. So, yeah, I think that's totally possible. Matt W. says, Cenk Uygur vowed all-out war on Biden's record. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something we got to bring back up. And it's kind of annoying because I got to rehash all the same arguments I made like 8 months ago about Joe Biden. I got to bring all that back out. Ray de los Santos says, so worried about this primary now. I can't believe the youth vote. It's their future, and they'd rather go on TikTok than care about it. Let me stop you there before I continue. I don't even think that's it. Young people are busy. Like, they're working jobs, like working late shifts. A lot of them aren't able to get off work. A lot of them, can barely afford housing, can barely afford to live, or maybe they're at school, so they're away from home and can't vote. Like, whatever the hell it is, there are all these different factors that are on young people, which is why they are so distracted. Now, are some of them on TikTok instead of going out to vote? Yeah, sure. But I think that's a minuscule issue compared to the real issue, which is that young people in general are living incredibly busy lives because of what capitalism has done to the system, or the system they live in. And it's politics is not on their mind generally, unless they're in a general election when it's everywhere. But during a primary process, it's not as on their mind. So that's why I think that's a big reason why they're not coming out in the kind of numbers that we need them to. Casual Thurs says Barbara Lee is 73 years old. Yep. Point being, like, people hold, like, 70s used to be really, really old. Like, really old. It's not that old anymore. Like, people are living longer and longer and longer. A lot of people living into their hundreds now. So, yeah, Barbara Lee's 73, but I bet you had to look that one up, because Barbara Lee does not seem 73 to me. Looking at Barbara Lee, I would think 50, 55. Like, she could easily pass for someone in their 50s. And she's sharp. So I like her. Harrison Gibson says, don't you think we can and should use this progressive movement to pressure a President Biden into implementing progressive policy if he were to win? Yes. Yes. This is the other thing I was thinking about, but I don't think we're quite there yet to talk about this. But if Biden were to win the nomination, the progressive movement has so much more power over a Democratic president than over Donald Trump, as you've seen. We have no power over Donald Trump. Zero power. But if there were Democrats in control of Congress and the Senate and the presidency, you can bet your ass the progressive movement has power there. You have AOC go out, bring out thousands of people to push for Medicare for all. Like, they would be able to spotlight issues and actually potentially get something done about them. If and especially someone like Joe Biden, who, let's be honest, is incredibly weak. Like, Joe Biden isn't the mastermind here. Like, it's people around him that are the ones holding him up. So you can absolutely put pressure on Joe Biden as the progressive movement. But let's table that discussion until maybe we have to bring it out. Let's hope we don't have to bring it out. But if we got to bring it back out, we'll get to that discussion at some point. Patrick Menard says, if Tulsi is Trump's VP versus Biden, I'd vote present too. No, it would just be Tulsi getting closer to power, helping herself. Like, don't for a second think that Tulsi, if Tulsi were Trump's VP, that she would actually do anything. What? Tulsi versus the entire Republican establishment? No. She loses that fight. Even if she wants to do anything about it, she wouldn't be able to. Reese C. says, and Tulsi censured Donald Trump. Why do you leave that out? Tulsi is the only one who has stood up for Bernie. Only wine cave moms and TYT fools who propped up Warren don't like her. I think I don't have as much of an issue with Tulsi as other people do. But you got to be honest with what kind of impact she would have if she was on the ticket. Somebody that voted president on impeachment as the Democratic vice president against Donald Trump. Like, you guys got to get your minds out of your own your own world. Think about, I'm telling you, there are people that don't think like you. There are people that see Tulsi Gabbard voting president on impeachment and think, why the hell would I support this person? Like, why would she be the vice president? That would hurt the older vote. So it would be dumb. It'd be dumb. And honestly, it was dumb of her to vote the way she did. If she wanted any hope of being a vice president on the Democratic nomination. Cutthroat Juggalo says, only good thing is that the establishment blew their load on Super Tuesday, and now Joe is going to have to at least do some of his own legwork. Yeah, that great point there. They pulled out all the stops for Super Tuesday, and now Biden has to actually campaign. He's been avoiding the cameras. He's barely campaigning. But at the same time, he was winning states that I believe he didn't even have offices in. I forget, this may be Minnesota or Massachusetts or Maine, one of the M's. But Biden didn't even have any people on the ground in one of these states, and he won them. And a lot of that is because, at least in the case of Massachusetts, Warren splitting the vote and hurting Sanders there. But also because Biden is a household name, so he doesn't really have to do all that much. And when he actually shows up, like when he did in Iowa, guess what? People don't like him, because when they actually see him on stage and realize, wow, this guy is not well, I'm not going to vote for him, then his support goes down. But when he avoids states and doesn't go there, he actually does okay, because they don't see who the real Joe Biden is. It's this weird scenario where it almost benefits Biden to stay as hidden as possible. All right, I think we're done here. No, there's more. Bob Corrado says, Clinton commenced the destruction of the Democratic Party. Obama accelerated it, and Biden will finish the job if by miracle he wins. I mean, I guess he would finish the job if he lost. Jorge Luis says, do you think Warren is staying until the very end? I mean, really? Do you think Bernie's going to try to convince her to endorse him? Bernie's already definitely tried to convince her to endorse him. But I don't know what Warren's thinking. She may have a behind-the-scenes deal with Joe Biden to stay in the race and hurt Sanders. So I don't know what she's doing. Like, it should be obvious. You come in third place in your own state, drop out. But the fact that they have to assess this, what assessing is there to do? You lost. You lost your own state. You came in third place in your own state. If she stays in, she's either completely fucking deranged, or there is a deal behind the scenes for her to stay in and hurt Sanders. I don't know what other option there is there. Because, like, why would she stay in? She has no path. So all it does is hurt Sanders. Am I done? There may be one more. I think that's it. All right, awesome. Good. All right, and there's a bit of a minute delay, so I apologize if I drop out as you are sending me a super chat. I'm not going to see it. But thank you all for coming. This was an impromptu live stream. Another live stream on Friday, as usual, Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And potentially more videos today. I don't know. But also, follow me on Twitch. I'm doing a little more streaming on Twitch now. That is below the video. When I'm on Twitch, I'm able to stream like stuff like cable news that I would get dinged for on YouTube. So I'm able to diversify my coverage on Twitch, and also do stuff like play video games, which I want to do more of, to be quite honest with you. It really helps to ease my mind after all this day in, day out insanity in politics. All right. Thank you all for coming, and see you later.